I told my 9-year-old daughter that I was going to be speaking with you, and I said, "What do you think about climate change?" And she said, "The earth is on fire, and we're all going to die soon." And I asked her how that made her feel, and she said it made her feel angry.
It made her feel angry. Her 9-year-old daughter told her the earth is on fire and we're all going to die soon. Democrat Congresswoman Katie Porter. Katie Porter in California. Summertime is terrifying for Democrats. They have to take a lot of drugs just to get through the summertime. It's very, very frightening for them. Yes, sir. You're a Democrat Party. Remember, where was the Democrats took over Hamilton Hall? Was that Columbia University or was it Harvard University where they took over because they hate the Jews and they want to support Hamas, a radical Islamic terror group? Columbia University, they took over Hamilton Hall. They're terrible. They're just terrible. Terrorists. They're the Democrat Party. Republican Party should frame them as terrorists who are going to end democracy and life on earth. All life on earth will die if the Democrats win the election in November, because you know how they are. They're crazy. Look what they do in Chicago. Just give them a chance. And speaking of Hamilton Hall at the Columbia University and the Democrats taking it over because they're pro-Hamas and anti-Israel, American history is a great, wonderful, wonderful story. A great story. A very human story, a very important human story, too. And one of the things that Alexander Hamilton did is he founded a newspaper that we call the New York Post. The New York Post was founded by Alexander Hamilton. He was an extraordinary man. He was a military officer, a statesman. He's one of our founding fathers. He was Secretary of the Treasury. Amazing stuff. While George Washington was president of the United States. A great story. He was actually born out of wedlock. Things were different back then, and they're different now, too. Amazing stuff. But he also, interestingly enough, was killed. He was killed because he was shot in a duel. Alexander Hamilton was shot in a duel on this date, July 11th of 1804. It was 1804, and Alexander Hamilton, living an extraordinary life, an amazing life, a remarkable man, a Renaissance man, a man of the Enlightenment, an extraordinary human being in all of human history. There are very few Alexander Hamiltons. And it was, he founded a newspaper. He's Treasury Secretary. The newspaper lives to this day. I believe it is America's oldest continuously operating newspaper. And on this date in 1804, Alexander Hamilton found himself in a duel with then Vice President Aaron Burr. And Alexander Hamilton died the next day. He was shot. You know, they had fancy old-fashioned guns, muzzle loaders and things. And Aaron Burr shot Alexander Hamilton on this date in 1804. Alexander Hamilton died the next day. Yes, sir. That is amazing stuff. 7-Eleven. That's was a mini market named after this date, but that's a crazy thing. I was going back and forth with my friend Tim on this because he's a learned historian and great American. Fun stuff. And that's worth noting. We did open with a soundbite there from one of our favorite congresswomen, the California Democrat, Katie Porter, who told her 9-year-old daughter that the earth is on fire and we're all going to die soon. And then her daughter told her back, the earth is on fire and we're all going to die soon. And Katie Porter asked her 9-year-old daughter how that made her feel. And her daughter said it made her feel angry. And this is how Democrats raise children to be psychopaths when they grow up. And then they take over Hamilton Hall at Columbia University. They get into Ivy League schools, and they're insane, and they're mental, and they're violent, and they hate the Jews. The hate the Jews thing is pretty amazing too, isn't it? Yes, it is. So many wild stories today. Here's another one. I'm going to use the version from the Daily Beast. The Daily Beast. The headline is CNN. Perhaps you've heard of it. CNN, and then we'll get Dana Bash because she's on CNN. CNN to lay off 100 people in pivot to digital video. If you're going to pivot to digital video, wouldn't you need more people and not fewer people? Because you got the TV station over here, and you got, what happened to that? They were going to do that online thing. Oh, CNN Plus. That didn't work out very well. But we learned yesterday CNN is cutting 100 people. And that you should phrase that differently. They're cutting 100 jobs. I don't think they're going to run with a straight razor like Corn Pop and cut 100 people. They're going to cut 100 jobs as CNN prepares to launch dual digital subscription services. Wait a minute. So they're launching a new effort, and therefore you need fewer people. So they're lying to you even when they put out a press release on what they're doing next. And it sounds like they're expanding, and therefore they will need fewer people. So they're cutting them. Got a razor in his shoe, just like Hillary Clinton. The latest effort, this is the Daily Beast, left-wingers of the Daily Beast, in CEO Mark Thompson's plan to reinvigorate the cable news titan. I think calling it a titan at this point is probably overstatement. The areas impacted by the cuts reported by Variety were not specified. Sure, they weren't, so they're not telling the truth about that either. We'll have to find out later on. Isn't that amazing? So CNN cutting 100 jobs, not people, I hope. The cuts come ahead of the network's plan to launch 2 subscription products on CNN's website, one focused around its original series and production, another targeting Spanish-speaking customers. Oh, here's kind of a fun story. The big soccer game. There were big soccer games last night. You know, that's like, what is it? They call it football in other places because they run around and they kick the ball. Kick. And last night, there was a big soccer game on, and it turned into a brawl. Did you see this? It turned into a brawl. Kind of an amusing thing. It was the Colombia, Uruguay. I'm trying to be more like Barack Obama today and use fake pronunciations in Spanish. Amazing stuff. During the game last night on Univision, which I like to call Univision because I speak English and I don't do fake accents, except when I'm mocking other people doing fake accents. But the Uruguay-Colombia soccer game last night, it was on Univision, which is probably on your cable if you have cable, and I do, and it is on my cable. And interestingly enough, my friend Sylvie called in a couple of days ago and was talking about watching the this, Copa, the Latin American soccer tournament, and said that the Democrats had placed Spanish language TV ads in the soccer games on Univision, Spanish language station, right? And last night, it turns out, Sylvie, one of the founding mothers of the Real Housewives of WMAL, right? A great group of conservative radio talk show listeners, wonderful people. I've met many, if not all, of the members of, probably not all, of the Real Housewives of WMAL. But last night, there was a big soccer game on, Uruguay and Colombia, and Sylvie actually let me know that the Trump campaign had a Spanish language TV ad during the Uruguay-Colombia soccer match last night. And then at the end of the game, it turned into a riot. And it was kind of funny. It was a little bit funny. It was very violent, but it turned into a riot because a bunch of the players from Uruguay ran into the stands and beat the hell out of a bunch of fans. They're in uniform. The game is just wrapping up. And the players from Uruguay ran into the stands at the Copa America big soccer match last night, Colombia, Uruguay. And it was It's kind of funny. And it turns out that happens all the time. It happens all the time. We're becoming more like that, by the way, thanks to the Democrat Party. Here in the United States, we're becoming a lot more like that. But good news, and it is good news, that the Trump campaign had ads placed in the Spanish language TV ads for the Trump people and the Republicans in the Univision airing of the Uruguay-Colombia soccer match last night. You want to hear a little bit of it? You have it right there in Espanol. Yeah. And here's the television ad that the Trump people, the Trump campaign, placed, the Spanish language ad, in the Univision airing of the Uruguay-Colombia soccer game last night before the riot broke out and the Uruguayans, the team, ran into the crowd to beat the hell out of the fans.
Somos americanos orgullosos y creemos en el sueño americano. Pero bajo Biden es difícil. La inflación de Biden ha elevado los costos de la comida. El costo de la gasolina está muy alto y nuestros ingresos han bajado. Biden nos ha fallado. El presidente Trump no lo hará. Trump bajó nuestros impuestos, subió nuestros ingresos, hizo que la vivienda fuera asequible y lo hará de nuevo.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
He doesn't do it in Spanish, though. So that's Los Gringos Americanos. In English, that is. So that is great, and that is great stuff. One of the things I learned a while back, and I talked about it here a little bit. My great friend Luis Quinones, who is an extraordinary American story, came here as a teenager from Guatemala and worked in the Trump administration. And you see, I just did the accent there, didn't I? That's what I always do it mockingly. And my friend Luis, who I was texting with just the other day, let me know last year that radical left-wingers, I believe it was a Soros group, they were buying up Spanish language radio stations in the United States to turn them into left-wing propaganda outlets in the Spanish language, because they're commies. The commies are on the march around the world once again. I think they never stopped, really. But here they come. Boy, they are not on our side. And you remember when Barack Obama told us, he warned us that we all better learn how to speak Spanish. Don't worry about immigrants learning to speak English. They'll learn to speak English. But you better worry about learning, and your kids learning to speak Spanish.
Instead of worrying about whether immigrants can learn English, they'll learn English. You need to make sure your child can speak Spanish.
Why would I have to concern myself with that? Well, he explained that too.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
And the crowd went wild like Germans in Munich in 1933. They're just not on our team. They're not on our side. These are not American values. Barack Obama is not on Team America. He's on Team anybody but America. And that's where the Democrat Party is. He's an Alinskyite and a radical left-wing propagandist and brainwasher. And he's all about Alinsky, Saul Alinsky, as is Hillary Clinton, who actually interned with Saul Alinsky himself. Commies here to destroy America. That's your Democrat Party. You know that the financial world has changed and is changing. It's time to consider how you are going to adapt. We just saw a seismic shift happen in the global financial world when Saudi Arabia declared that it may exit the petrodollar system. For 75 years, the petrodollar agreement has helped to maintain the United States, the U.S. dollar, as the world's reserve currency. But, that era may now be coming to an end with Saudi Arabia, and this change that could have far-reaching effects on our economy and the global economy. In times of major economic transition and mayhem and chaos, a lot of smart investors look to diversify with tangible assets. You know what those are? Gold. Gold, with its history of being a safe harbor in turbulent economic times forever and ever, may become the go-to option for smart investors looking for growth potential and stability. That's why I recommend calling Advantage Gold. Advantage Gold. All you have to do to get started is text Chris, C-H-R-I-S, of course, to 1-888-255-0668. You're going to get a 100% free 2024 gold and silver kit A great guide, plus you mention this ad and you may qualify for a $1,300 bonus, a $1,300 bonus. Get started by texting Chris, C-H-R-I-S, to 1-888-255-0668. Take action now. Message and data rates may apply. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. Yeah. And I got a lot of politics to get to and media. But what's the difference? CNN is laying people off. Probably not Dana Bash, but we got some of her coming up. And we remain at 888-630-9625. The White House has announced that the 5:30 Joe Biden big guy press conference tonight will actually be at 6:30. And they say it's because of NATO. I think they're invading Russia or something. I don't know. Maybe we should just make the front page of the Washington Times today. The one headline is NATO puts Ukraine on firm path to membership in NATO. I think we should short circuit this whole thing. Just make Russia a member of NATO now. Since we're taking in all the former Soviet republics and making them members of NATO, we could, there'd be total peace in the world if NATO would just accept Russia as a member of NATO, right? I'm being facetious, of course, because they're commies and Putin is over there and he's a commie. But we got a lot of commies here, too. We call them the Democrats. Remarkable stuff. Communique blasts China ties to Russia. They've got a communique. That's French for note. And Ukraine now on firm path to NATO membership. We promised Russia when the Soviet Union collapsed that we wouldn't expand NATO into their backyard. And we've expanded NATO into their backyard again and again and again, not keeping our word on that. And really the fix, I think Joe Biden should propose making Russia a NATO member, then they couldn't attack us. See? It's like, it reminds me of Lorenzo Sandoval in the movie The Producers from 1968, playing Adolf Hitler. When he discovered that he was German, he was very upset because that means they can't invade Germany. See? So if Russia were a member of NATO, he couldn't invade other NATO countries. Then he'd just have to sit in place. What do you think? Satirical foreign policy at this point would not be much different than our actual foreign policy, so we might as well give it a whack. Now, I was just joking about having Russia join NATO because then he couldn't attack NATO countries because he's a member of NATO, and that's the Mel Brookses, The Producers from 1968, is filled with historical gems and so much of what was comedy in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s have now come to be reality. A lot of Monty Python skits are, the Democrat Party is now making real, like, I want to be called Loretta because I want to have a baby. You can't have a baby, you haven't got a womb. But the Democrats have turned Monty Python into policy, and what used to be, when Saturday Night Live was funny, they've turned it into political policy. And I was joking about, instead of having Ukraine join NATO, just have Russia join NATO, then they can't attack NATO. And I was being tongue-in-cheek. But it turns out, my friend Seaton points out, Putin, long ago now, Vladimir Putin said that he discussed Russia's possible NATO membership with Bill Clinton because he knows that the left has got his back there. Putin, he's an old commie, Soviet, KGB, Stasi guy, and that's collusion, I think. Isn't that collusion? Russian President Vladimir Putin has claimed that he once raised the possibility of Russia joining NATO with then President Bill Clinton, and that Clinton said he had no objection. Undoubtedly true, because Democrats. That's pretty amazing stuff. Radio Free Europe reported that in 2017, June 3rd of 2017. Isn't that amazing? Putin said He talked to Bill Clinton about joining NATO, Russia joining NATO. Sure, why not? The Democrat Party and the left, they are in bed together, and it's not pretty, let me tell you. I'm telling you. Just remarkable stuff that we're watching. Now, speaking of remarkable stuff and Joe Biden and all that, let's go to a hearing on Capitol Hill yesterday. There was hearing, and the Republicans invited the Fed chair, the chair of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, to testify. And this is kind of a remarkable moment, I've got to say. Republican Congressman Mike Lawler of New York was talking to Jerome Powell, the chair of the Fed, keeping in mind that when Joe Biden became president, our inflation rate was 1.4%. It had been 1.2% just a few months prior to Inauguration Day. 1.4%, and Joe Biden brought it up to 9.1%. He's only been president for 3.5 years now-ish, and very, very close to 3.5 years now. And Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, was asked by Republican Congressman Mike Lawler, hey, tell me about the meetings you've had and the discussions that you've had with the President of the United States, given the state of the economy and inflation, and people can't buy homes, and interest rates are so high because of inflation and the state of the dollar. And honestly, so it sounded like this on Capitol Hill yesterday.
The last public meeting between you and President Biden occurred on May 31st, 2022. Does that sound accurate?
I'm going to take your word for it.
Okay. Have you had any private meetings with the president since that time?
No.
Any phone calls with the president?
Nope. I don't believe so.
In over 2 years, with inflation still nagging us, with cost out of control, President Biden has not asked to meet with you in over 2 years?
I haven't had a meeting with him. He hasn't sought a meeting, and of course I don't seek meetings.
He hasn't. Who's the president of the United States? The economy is. They keep telling us how great it is and how we're just too stupid to appreciate how wonderful the economy is, and the inflation is down from the 9.1% high that Joe Biden's policies drove it to. But interest rates still gigantic. Young people can't buy houses. Polls show people in their 20s and even 30s sort of given up on the American dream of home ownership. Real estate agents are scrambling everywhere you look because of the state of the economy. And where is the alleged president of the United States? Well, he's certainly not doing anything on the economy. At least we've got wars going on in Europe and wars going on in the Middle East, and mayhem everywhere you look. Crime and chaos. They tell us crime is down too. Oh, the FBI official crime stats show crime is down. Hey, thank Joe Biden. Everything's so great. Turns out cities aren't even reporting their crime stats up to the Justice Department, and the FBI and the Bureau of Justice Statistics don't have all the numbers they need. So they're giving us Soviet numbers. They're giving us fake numbers, which is what communists do. It's what leftists do. And then it turns out that Chunk Todd, remember Chunk? Don't hear a lot out of Chunk anymore. He's got a podcast now. Yeah, sure. You know, dead people have podcasts. Everybody's got a podcast. It's amazing. So Chunk Todd has a podcast, and he said he's a former Democrat campaign staffer. Chunk Todd is. Chunk's wife runs a Democrat campaign operation in suburban Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C., working for the Bernie Sanders campaign, taking in millions of dollars. There are commies everywhere, and Bernie Sanders is a Bolshevik. But here's Chunk Todd on his podcast, and he's apparently known for years that Joe Biden is just not doing the job. Chunk, this is yesterday, right, on Chunk's podcast.
I had a cabinet secretary 2 years ago. Right. Okay, 2 years ago. All out of the blue, ask me, do you really think he can't run again like this? And I said, well, you have more interaction with him than I do. And they said, I don't have a lot of interaction with him. This is a pretty senior cabinet secretary. So, and this was 2 years ago.
And I didn't have any of these, and so Chunk is known for years, and our media are the biggest liars in the world. They, now he would cheat on his wife if any woman wanted him, but because, you know, I mean, when you're that dishonest, it's one of the things, I'll just leave it at that. One of the things about cheating is somebody else has to want you, you know. The remarkable thing, the Chunk, Shakespeare in the Park guy, amazing stuff. And Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, hasn't spoken to the president of the United States in 2 years. No phone calls, no in-person meetings. May 21st of 2022 was a public event where there were other people there. He's not doing the job of president. That's one of the things that everybody should know. And Chunk Todd, he's been sitting on this for 2 years. Oh, cabinet secretaries? Biden doesn't talk to them. Biden doesn't meet with them. Biden doesn't do that. He's a sousaphone player, isn't he? Chunk Todd, he played the sousaphone, the college marching band. That's right. He got French. It's French horn, not a sousaphone. There he is blowing his French horn. Chunk Todd. They just don't report the news. They just don't report the news. They're not journalists. They're not in the news business. They're Democrats with jobs at networks that pay them millions of dollars to do what the Democratic Party wants them to do, because it seems like every single Democrat is a corrupt person. Isn't that amazing? And now Joe Biden's 5:30 press conference will be at 6:30 tonight. Why? They said, NATO. Really? That's why? All right, let's, you want to take a phone call? Let's take a phone call. And I've got a lot of news media stuff, CNN stuff to get to as well. And a lot of confusion at CNN. I got Dana Bash stuff for you at CNN. And then Jake Tapper, with just being confused because Clooney, now the White House is smearing Clooney. That's the standard approach, standard response for Democrats is change the subject and attack, right? And that's what they've done with George Clooney, who was their great pal just a few minutes ago because money, right? Because money. I mean, they're as greedy about money as Mexican drug cartels. They're Democrat parties like our own Sinaloa cartel. Remarkable stuff. Let's grab a phone call. Let's go to Louie, calling from Arkansas. Louie, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Louie.
Hey, it's always a blessing to listen to you, man. I was just pulling over to get gas, and I heard you on the radio to the guy next to me, and I was calling in just for that same reason because we love you to death, and we don't have no body on the radio that talks like you and has your great humor, and we're just blessed to have you. And that was one of the questions I was going to ask is, like the good country song, who's going to fill the shoes when, like, you're gone? Who do you think could be just as good as you and trustworthy to the listeners?
Well, that's a tough one. Now, Louis, I got to say, you were pulling over to get gasoline. You're calling from Arkansas, and you say the guy in the car next to you was listening to my radio show?
Yes, he was.
Is that right? That's really fun. That's fun to hear. So you pulled over into a gas station. You're driving, minding your own business, being a great American, and you pulled up in the gas station, and you could hear the car radio in the car next to you, and the guy was listening to my show. And
yes. I was laughing because I was like, that's what I do every morning. I listen to Chris. I take the kids to school and work. I'm disabled, so I can't, work anymore. So I'm just out Ubering the kids, and this is the best morning show that I've come across. And like he said, when I was talking to the guy at the gas station, he's like, he listened to Rush. Really, really loves Rush, and that's how he found out about you. But he likes you just as much as, or even more than Rush, and I agreed with him too.
High praise indeed. And then your question is, when I am struck by lightning and the good Lord calls me home, who will take my place? Who will fill my shoes? Interestingly, that won't be on my list of responsibilities at that time. And you say when you retire, I have no intention of retiring, and I don't have enough money to retire, so I need to keep working, And my best girl, she likes a guy with a job. She loves a guy, and if I just stayed home every day, I would be doing this at home. I'd be doing this at home for an audience of one. But I have no plan for retirement. You know what my plan for retirement is, Louis?
What is that?
Yesterday I bought 2 lottery tickets. That's my retirement plan. That's it. That's the whole thing.
I got it out. Yeah, I'm a little slow to that one. Yes, that's great. My grandfather would do that to me every day after work. But when you're $100 in bottles, I'm like, we're gonna retire soon. Yeah, that's perfectly said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Today's economy is just horrible.
Yeah, that's it. I'm a humble radio talk show host, Louis, and I have a television show on Newsmax now, and that's a wonderful opportunity, and have a great time doing that. But Louis, I plan, if everything works out, I plan on doing this for a long time.
Well, we hope you plan to stay on the radio as long. And I love watching your show, and that show is great. I love you're teaching the other young people around you how to be a journalist, because like most people are like, I don't want that Democrat on your radio on your TV show, but you invite them more in just to show their hypocrisy and their lies to their face.
Yeah.
Without bringing at them, without having a big fight, you just bring facts to them, and then they just shut down.
Yeah.
The best thing I've gotten from you is like how to engage with somebody that doesn't agree with me. You can agree to disagree, or you can show them facts, but you don't have to make your day so horrible trying to show somebody that doesn't want to listen.
Yeah.
You repeatedly say it all the time about Democrats on the radio, and that's what the guy at the gas station said also, is like he gives us facts and his own opinion, and he's very humble, and that's why we all listen to you, and we're happy to have you.
Well, that is a very, very nice thing to say, Louis, and I appreciate your calling in very much, and the man next to you too. I think that's wonderful, Louis. I'm really happy you called in. I'm happy that I spoke to you today. I appreciate it, and God bless you, and God save America. And honestly, Louis, I just love the truth. I love telling the truth. I love getting the truth out to people, and that's why I had to leave CNN and what they call journalism today. Come do talk radio, and I get to tell the truth at Newsmax as well. And I'm a fanatic for the truth, which I think is a good and noble thing. And you're very kind. I appreciate your kind words very much. And I'm gonna try to make good and keep doing this for a long, long time. If everything works out as I hope it does. I would say Louis was also right in everything that he said. Wouldn't you? I mean, it's hard to dispute anything Louis said. And the man next to him in another vehicle as well. Wise people, Americans, regular Americans. Okay, let's. I still got a lot to get to, of course. And we got funny George Clooney stuff, having nothing to do with George Clooney, but the Democrat Party's reaction to George Clooney, and that means the news media's reaction to George Clooney. And they just start making stuff up, and there are conspiracy theories that they sow every day because they have the brains of children. And we got MSDNC and CNN and Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. And what do we have? Obama speechwriter. And now they're starting to devour each other because they're in panic mode. And the New York Times now is, what are they? They're calling for the Republican Party to reject Donald Trump. Since the New York Times as the candidate, since the New York Times the other day called for Joe Biden to not be the Democrat candidate, the Democrats became angry with him. They might burn their building down in New York or something. So now the New York Times is saying, well, the Republican Party should also reject Donald Trump. I mean, don't get us wrong. We hate Republicans more than anything. Remarkable stuff. They want to save America. The Democrats want to destroy democracy in order to save it. Let's take a phone call. Let's see. All right, let's go to Marco in Springfield, Virginia. Marco, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris, thanks for taking my call again. I don't mean to monopolize the airwaves, but I had to call you. I'm working for an audience of 1-2 here, but I wanted to say that I was watching Our Planet with my granddaughters the other day, and they were talking about what brought on the Ice Age. A significant drop in carbon dioxide levels was responsible for the Ice Age. And so that's what we're looking at now. Keep dropping them. And secondly, Chunk Todd, like rats leaving a sinking ship, and I appreciate your Al Bundy approach to retirement by buying lottery tickets.
It is. That's my plan. It's the only plan I have.
Yeah, Married with Children. There was an episode. He spent all his retirement money buying lottery tickets, and he didn't win any. Check it out. Funny.
That's great.
Yeah. And I agree with Louis. Best show on talk radio, without a doubt.
Well, thank you very kindly. You're very kind. Thank you, Marco. And what fun! I explained to the kids because the grandkids they're like, the Ice Age, learn about Ice Age and the woolly mammoth and glaciers and creating the Great Lakes and making 10,000 lakes in Minnesota and all that good stuff. And what caused that? Well, it's a drop in CO2. And our Greenpeace guy today, more CO2, better. More trees, more fresh air.